Last episode was about Fords, and it would only make sense if we spoke about Holdens. So the first car we're going to talk about, VE Commodore. So this VE over here is probably the most pedestrian, crumb spec Commodore you can get. This has a version of the alloy tech. It's not a 3.6, it's actually a 3 litre because this VE is an international model. I don't really know much about all these model designations on VEs. I just know that there's like Omegas. In the earlier VEs they had Berliners, Internationals. In the Series 2 and later Series 1 models they really cleaned up the model names and they just had a few different ones. There was the Omega, International, SV6, Calais, and then obviously the SS and then the HSV models. But let's walk around this one because this is one of the cheapest VEs you could buy brand new. So before we move on to the engine side of things, I want to quickly gloss over the interior because not only do these VEs have engines, but some of their interiors are bloody horrible. So starting off with the interior, I don't think you'll find a single VE on the road like that has over 10,000 kilometers where these little things over here aren't coming apart. This is a really common problem on these VE steering wheels. This particular one has 277,000 kilometers, so it probably isn't on its original timing chain, but we'll get to that a little bit later. But here as well, if you didn't get a leather gear knob, you got this horrible plastic one that looks like it melts just from human slime and grime. These handbrakes, I really don't like these. I mean, they're just crap to hold. It feels like you're going to break your wrist when you pull it up. So when it comes to VEs, they have a lot of mechanical problems, but they also have a lot of electrical problems too. ABS control modules, immobilizer units, stuff like that just completely brick the car. I've seen a lot of TikTok videos about people struggling to diagnose these cars. Of course, sagging headliner. Every good Ford and Holden should have a sagging headliner. Got these fake and nasty leather looking seats, and then the worst stereo system ever fitted to a car, Blaupunkt. The bass sounds like you're just clapping your hands together in these. I'm keen to see what's under the bonnet. Alright, so it turns out this thing's an LS3 in it. Tough, but this is a 3 litre V6, and yes, it does have the same timing chain issues as the 3.6s. They just make less power. I don't know why they need to complicate the model range with a 3 and a 3.6 V6. Will I ever own one? Definitely not. So when I was filming that bit on the VE just before, I started to feel a little bit ill, started sweating, and I think I know why. And it's because of this thing. My body knew the shitness was just radiating off this thing. I just started to feel like crap. I actually know someone that is a big Captiva fan, so I'm gonna hand you guys over to him.
Guys, it's me here, Captiva fan 69. Captiva's notorious for being just the most car in the entire world. As you can see, we got one here, we got one there. I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's one over there, and there's another one on the right of it over here. So the Graze is just filled with these things. I've seen when they get engine lights on them, they go up for auction, and you can buy them for $100. So yeah, just stay away from them.
So Yorek's actually a really big fan of Captivas, as you just heard. One day I hear in the grapevine that he's actually looking to buy one, so
I'm gonna buy one from here. I've seen firsthand these things. As soon as they got in the description it's got an engine light or any sort of issue, not one person bothers to bid on them because they know it's instantly just rinse your bank account. So one like this, if I can get it for $100, why wouldn't I? It's worth more in scrap metal.
But anyway, let's actually talk about the car here. This one looks to be like a facelifted, maybe mid-2010s model. So this most likely either has the alloy tech in it, or it has...
Let's find out.
Or it has a diesel, so let's find out. Ecotech. So I was wrong. It's got a 4-cylinder. Does it even have a turbo on it? I think it's just a 4-cylinder petrol. Oh, this is rubbish, mate.
No, either way, proof that you can polish your turd. These things actually look pretty nice on the outside, and they've got a pretty good interior as well, but the rest of it... So this one here is the absolute cream of the crop, the shittest of the shit. This is a turbo diesel one. Now these things at auction houses all over Australia, they're just littered with these things because everyone wants to, no one can get rid of them. On Facebook Marketplace you might see this for a few grand for a reason. These things catch on fire. The gearboxes blow up, the engines blow up. They've got every problem you could imagine, any fluid you could imagine, they leak it. Just a horrible, horrible car. A lot of people fall victim to these things, but end of the day, stay away.
So I'm just walking down the four-wheel drive section, which is at the back half of Gray's, and I just noticed this nice looking Colorado. So these cars I actually kind of like, because they're based on an Isuzu D-Max, and I rate Isuzu D-Maxes. I think they're great dual cabs. This one isn't a dual cab, it's a single cab with an alloy tech. If I had to get a Rodeo, it would definitely be one of the 4J, because they're great engines, other than the usual crank snapping issues and stuff like that, but that's only if you push them. So this one has the 3.6, either 3.5 or 3.6, and it's got a 5-speed manual as well. That's fucking gross. These cars are great cheap work utes. The cluster looks like it's out of a Holden Astra or like a Barina, something like that. But let's check out this alloy tech over here. So yep, that's an alloy tech if I've ever seen one. I wonder how bad the chain rattle is if I were to start it up. But who knows, it might have had the chains done before. But I don't know if I've mentioned it in this video or not, but I definitely have mentioned it in a past record video, where in America they also use these engines in Cadillacs and Chevys and stuff. And there was a technical service bulletin, a recall, where they actually changed the way the PCV system works in these things, so they wouldn't burn as much oil and thus starve the chain and the guides of oil and start rattling. Obviously that's mainly where these chain issues come from. It's from the PCV system sapping oil all out of the head and just burning it straight away. What's funny is I was just talking about the Rodeo and how it's based on a D-Max, and there's a D-Max sitting literally right behind it. The reason I'm talking about this is obviously the D-Max and the Colorado are basically identical, other than the fact that this particular D-Max, if you can see there, there's a cheeky little top mount intercooler, which means it'll have the 4JJ1 engine. And like I said earlier, these engines are really good. Excellent engines, they're super reliable. Obviously they have their normal diesel issues like injectors going out, injector seals, DPFs in the newer ones, and EGRs getting clogged up because of emissions and stuff like that. But every diesel engine has those problems. But the reason why these things are so good is because they're found in cars that aren't too expensive, that people just getting into dual cabs can get them, and they can tune them up. 4Js love boost. So not far from this 4J Colorado is this newer RJ or RG Colorado. These ones, they ditched the 4J engine. The last ones came with a 4JJ3 engine, which some of them are still used in BT50s and newer Isuzu D-Maxes. But this one here has a Duramax engine, which I've heard is actually a Stellantis group engine, so they're used in like Fiat vans and stuff like that. I've heard good things about these Colorados. I've actually worked on one of these. It had like 200,000+ kilometers and it didn't really have many leaks, which was really surprising. This is a newer ute, so it would definitely have a DPF and it would definitely have EGR problems as well. But again, like I said earlier, all newer utes, doesn't matter if it's a Toyota, a Holden, an Isuzu, whatever, they're all going to have all these problems, and you just got to deal with it. That's just the way the world's going. These I actually quite like the look of. This one's a 4x4. You can get them in a single cab as well, 4x2. A lot of families nowadays, they're switching to dual cabs for family cars because they have enough room for everything you need. You don't need to get a minivan, save your dignity, and just get a dual cab. I see a lot of people owning these newer Colorados, and there's actually even a HSV model of one of these called the Sports Cab. So here's a car that's pretty common on Australian roads, but also not at the same time. This over here looks to be just a regular VZ Ute, but in reality, it's a VZ 1-tonner. The common difference between Holden Utes and Ford Utes, especially modern ones, is that Holden Utes generally have independent rear suspension, whereas the 1-tonners, they don't. They have a solid rear end. So it's got a solid rear end. Not sure what type of rear ends these use. I'd imagine they're pretty similar to a Falcon, Borg Warner, maybe an M78 or an M80 rear end. But this one is a V6 alloy tech, and it has the good old 4L60E, everyone's favorite transmission. Some of them are good, some of them blow up. but it's the same case with Falcons and BTRs. So I can hang shit on 4L60s as much as I can hang shit on BTRs. The 4L60s, I'm pretty sure they've been used since the VNs, like different iterations obviously. When you look inside, the one thing I've never understood about these Commodores is why the the doors are so bloody heavy. But this one is such a boggo standard spec. It's actually a pretty low case, 218,000 kilometers. But yeah, the seat is absolutely hammered. You can see the metal poking through there. Not much to say. Again, Blaupunkt stereo, air conditioning. These are bare bones. It's like getting a Falcon 1-tonner as well. They're just good for purpose, and that's about it.
So I've already talked about the Holden Captiva and just how shit it is, but while we're on that topic, I just walked past this and I fell to my knees. This is the Holden Cruze. For those of you who don't know, this is like the Captiva Mini, just as shit, just as cheap, and just as many problems. First thing I want to point out though, give me the camera, Nathan. If you come over here, someone's tried to pull a dodgy. They've actually done like, put a Camry tissue box on the back windscreen, trying to like, you know, pretend it's reliable when it's not.
But the telltale sign is that it's not. It doesn't have a hit in the rear corner of the bumper.
So they've done half a job. They put the tissue box, but there's no panel damage on this thing. Interior, you know, same as the Captiva pretty much. Fake leather, plastic. It looks pretty nice.
They have like the same center console and shifter design as the Captiva.
Bit of action going on the back seat here. Have a look at this.
Ecotech.
This is on a turbo diesel.
Yep.
Those are the ones that stick out. These are not great either, but that's the same engine that the first Captiva we looked at has.
Yep.
But end of the day, it's a Holden Cruze. These and the Captivas I would not touch with a 10-foot pole. I'd buy one as a joke and send it to the scrapyard, and that's all I'd do with it.
The Ecotech's probably the most reliable Cruze you can get. They come turbo petrol as well and turbo diesel. If you're buying one, get one that has the least amount of moving parts on it. An Ecotech, which is naturally aspirated.
The thing about these though as well is the engine, this might be the best engine of the bunch, but the engine's not the problem with the car. The whole car is the problem. Everything else will f***ing fail on you. It'll cost you 4 times what you paid for it in probably a year. If you want one of these, this is my recommendation.
Oh, 100%.
I've got one of these. I bought it, actually literally bought it from Gray's here. It cost me like $1,500. All I've had to do for it in the last 3 years that I've owned it is a spark plug and an engine mount. The thing's been hammered, bounced off a limiter. If you want to get a Holden Cruze, get a Honda No Gets.
So I've been walking around the yard and I'm surprised I haven't seen a single Eco until I came about this bloody Stato.
Yeah. There's a few different types of Ecotechs. Some not very good, but this one is not that one. This is the almighty 3.8, as you know, never late in a 3.8. These things are absolutely bulletproof. They'll do a 500,000 Ks.
Would you say it's better than an Intech?
Nah, nothing's better than an Intech, but for Holden, apart from the V8s, this is the one you want.
So these ones, you find that the most simple engines obviously last the longest. So this is not dual overhead cam, nothing fancy, it's just a good old 3.8 litre pushrod V6.
Best thing about these things, if you've ever worked on an AU Falcon, you'd know that the coil pack is impossible to get to, but Holden have actually thought ahead and they put all that shit up top right in front of you. So there's no digging around underneath the car to change coil packs, you just fucking pull it straight off and that's it.
Same with the alternator. The alternator is buried under the power steering pump on an Intech and a barrel.
Yeah.
So a very serviceable engine. These have their common issues, the valley gasket, some electrical problems, coil packs, but they're so simple and easy to fix that it's worth the headache, I reckon.
Oh yeah, these things, they love limiter, love to get abused, and they last 500,000 Ks, and when they do blow up, like the Intechs, not that expensive to replace.
So out of all the Holdens that we've seen today, this is the only one I'd even slightly consider buying, and that's because it doesn't have an alloy or an Ecotech. It's got the LS1, and it's finished in this really nice green color. This is probably the nicest Holden out of the bunch that we've seen today, even though it's got a 4-speed 4L. I would still own it just because it has an LS in it. Would you own this car?
Yeah, for sure, bro. I love these things. I love all the V8 Holdens. The only problem this car will ever have is the struts that don't work. So
exactly right.
Hold that up, but anyway.
Well, the camera's overheating. I'm overheating, just like Holden Captivas. So we're going to finish off the video here. Thank you guys very much for watching. If you enjoy these wrecker and auction videos, please consider subscribing and giving this video a like. But anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.